Of June 5th, 2018 to order. The invocation will be recited by Council Vice President Landig.
Heavenly Father, we thank Thee for this day. Help us to use good judgment for the business at hand and guide us in wisdom and a continuing sense of truth and fairness for the community we represent.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Julie, please call the roll.
Mr. Landig.
Here.
Mr. Marne.
Here.
Mr. Blake.
Here.
Mr. Donovan.
Here.
Mrs. Dowling. Here. Mr. Kirchner.
Here.
Mr. Krieger.
Here. Approval of minutes. You have the minutes of the work session of May 15, 2018.
Move to approve. Second.
Julie, please call the roll.
Mr. Landig.
Yes.
Mr. Marne.
Yes.
Mr. Blake.
Yes.
Mr. Donovan.
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling. Mr. Kirchner.
Yes.
Mr. Krieger.
Yes. And the minutes of the regular meeting of May 15, 2018.
Move to approve. Second.
Julie, please call the roll.
Mr. Landig.
Yes.
Mr. Marne.
Yes.
Mr. Blake.
Yes.
Mr. Donovan.
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling. Yes. Mr. Kirchner.
Yes.
Mr. Krieger.
Yes. And we have one public hearing this evening. Ordinance number 18-0-051.
An ordinance amending the codified ordinances of the City of Mentor 2006 as amended and the official zoning map by rezoning of 1.026 acres from RVG Village Green District to R4 Single Family Residential District at 9168 Jackson Street.
Mr. Flipiak.
Thank you, Mr. President, and council will recall that this was rezoned to RVG for the purpose of the construction of a subdivision along Jackson Street. There were actually two properties involved in this, and one will not be required, so the administration has recommended that this be rezoned back to R4 Single Family. Mr. Traub.
Thank you, Mr. Flipiak. As usual, I have some visual aids to assist in the identification as to specifically where the parcel is. I would just note that the reason this appendage, as it were, was eliminated from the subdivision was as one goes through the planning process, there was an engineering determination made that, in fact, a portion of the property was impacted by the 100-year floodplain and would preclude, for the most part, the initial development scheme. As members of council may be aware, the applicant has submitted a revised subdivision scheme, which is making its way through the planning process. But again, for our purposes this evening, I'll share with you two illustrations of that land area to be eliminated from the subdivision. Thank you. I would also note for council's benefit that Mr. Summers is in the audience, so to the extent there are questions of the developer. And as indicated in your council packet and before you on the screen, you could see the area indicated. You'll also note that per that initial development plan, there were 2 units proposed to be constructed in that area, and this subsequent illustration I'll share with you. This is the revised one, but nevertheless you can see the edges, as it were, of that designated 100-year flood area depicted there that would have precluded profitable development and also just providing access to those properties. If there are any additional questions, thank you.
Are there any comments from the applicant?
Not at this time, but I can answer any questions
Okay.
anybody might have.
Thank you, Mr. Summers. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak in favor of this item? Is there anyone in the audience to speak in opposition to this item? No, there's nothing to respond to, Mr. Summers. So hearing none, council is in receipt of all correspondence and emails received pertaining to this matter, this public hearing is adjourned. Moving on to table legislation, ordinance number 18-0-026.
Mr. President,
Mr. Flippia.
we would ask that this remain on the table for now. The administration will be asking council to consider a revision to that, most likely at your next meeting.
Okay, thank you. New legislation, ordinance number 18-0-051.
An ordinance amending the codified ordinances of the City of Mentor 2006 as amended and the official zoning map by rezoning of 1.026 acres from RVG Village Green District to R4 Single Family Residential District at 9168 Jackson Street.
Mr. Flippia.
Nothing further to add, Mr. President.
Move to suspend.
Second. Duly call the roll.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake? Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Move to approve.
Second. Julie, call, sorry.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes. Ordinance number 18-0-051 has been approved. Ordinance number 18-0-052.
An ordinance to authorize transfers of funds, advances of funds, and revisions to appropriations and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Flippia.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Malinowski, please.
Thank you, Mr. Filipiak, members of council. This is a 1, 2, 3 ordinance. There's one permanent transfer, as noted, the $350,000 amount to pay the incremental cost over time of the amphitheater. 2 is the 2 temporary cash advances, one for that purpose of collecting throughout the remainder of the year so that we can spend out of that fund for the balance of the year. And the other temporary cash advances related to the spending of the NOPEC, what they call grant money that was received. And then the 3 is the 3 appropriation revisions as noted below, the largest being, again, the $350,000 general fund amount. And the additional $100,000 out of the Community Rec Facilities Fund is for the remaining golf course improvements that were previously budgeted. Purchase order just wasn't cut, so that's to appropriate the funds for that. I would recommend approval of the entire ordinance. Thank you.
Move to
Thank you.
suspend.
Second. Julie, call the roll.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Move to approve.
Second. Julie, call the roll.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake? Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes. Ordinance number 18-0-052 has been approved. Ordinance number 18-0-053.
An ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Blue Technologies for implementation of a document managed system and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Filipiak.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a budgeted item, and this follows along with the city's document management needs. We're trying to do more with electronic management of documents to avoid physical storage. And I'll ask our IT Director, Mr. Sehan, to offer some detail.
Thank you, Mr. Filipiak, and then the members of council. Basically, we are digitalizing with this project, digitalizing the city paper process, and also make it available under one repository, and then make it also available online if you wanted to, our citizens, that they can access some of the certain files as well, or the documentation without really going through the channels. In addition, that the accessing the process to the data that we are looking for is also is important. And with this project, we are also eliminate the duplication and triplication of the files that we are already have in our system as well. And we have quite a bit documents with the needs to be digitalized. And starting with the HR project, I think we'll be the first department that is going to benefit from this project. And then we would like to proceed with this, probably the second largest project after the fund project we have completed, and then we asking your approval.
Mr. President.
Council?
Mr. President.
Donovan.
This maintenance and service agreement doesn't fall under our other maintenance and service agreement I think we approved last year under that category?
This will be
Is
additional.
this extra?
This will be additional, sir, yes.
Any other questions?
Move to suspend.
Second. Julie, call the roll.
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Move to approve.
Second. Julie, call the roll.
Mr. Landig? Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes. Ordinance number 18-0-053 has been approved. Second reading, we have none. Third reading, we have none. And our favorite part of the night, manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. President. This year's household hazardous waste collection is on Saturday, June 9th, from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., once again being held at the Lake County Fairgrounds. Lake County residents are able to bring their household hazardous waste. This does not apply to businesses, just residents. And you can check the county's website for a list of acceptable items or call the Solid Waste District. The annual Police Department auction will be held this Saturday, June 9th, from 10 a.m. to noon. The auction will be held in the rear parking lot of the police station. There will be no parking to the rear, that rear area, so everyone will be required to park in front of the police station or in the City Hall parking lot. Items up for auction may be viewed between 9 and 10 a.m., and only payment by cash or check will be accepted. On behalf of the city, I want to extend our sincere appreciation to University Hospitals for their generous donation of 3 Lucas devices to our fire department. The donation of devices comes after an emergency call for a person who was in full cardiac arrest at Planet Fitness back in January. That Lucas device the one Lucas device that the city does have was able to save their life, and there was a University Hospital employee present at that particular instance. There was a small reception that was held on Tuesday, May 29th at the fire station where both the patient whose life was saved, the representative from University Hospitals, and our fire personnel who were involved in that incident all were honored. So those 3 additional Lucas devices now means that we have one available at each of our 5 stations. We actually have 2 of our own. And Chief, the value of those again is?
Each device is $15,000.
So, very nice donation, which we appreciate. Happy to say, and I know that Mr. Landig is even happier to hear this, that the two-town detention part of the two-town and Springbrook project is actually substantially complete, and including the outlet structure and the access road culverts. So the existing ditch line has been removed and the flow has now been redirected to the new channel, allowing for that basin to provide the stormwater management that we were hoping. So the site will be temporarily seeded right away and weather dependent, of course, and then final restoration will occur in September. But it will be able to provide us with the stormwater management benefit that we were after, so just in time, given the current rains. On Tuesday, May 29th, the Lake County engineer closed Toos Road, a 1/10 of a mile east of King Memorial Road for bridge repair. That repair includes the replacement of the bridge deck and requires that it be closed and all traffic be detoured for the duration of the project. The posted detour is King Memorial Road to State Route 84 to Button Road, and we expect that work to be complete and the bridge to reopen by August 15th. The city has started inspecting sidewalk in Zone 4B for deficiencies as part of our pedestrian safety program. Inspections are expected to be complete by mid-June, after which we'll be bringing council a resolution of necessity for repairs in that district. And then a few comments and items of note in our Parks and Recreation Department. We have recently installed 12 new security cameras in and around the amphitheater. That was important to us to be able to preserve that structure. I'm happy to say we haven't had any significant security issues, but we want to keep it that way. Menor Comedy Night at the amphitheater is on this Saturday, June 9th, from 7 to 9 p.m. We ask the public to come out and enjoy a night of stand-up comedy featuring Bill Squire, Jeff Davis, Mike Head, and Mary Santora. Admission and parking are, of course, free, and there will be food trucks as well as beer and wine available. Parental guidance is suggested, although this is a PG show, so lest you worry. The Men of Rock's free concert series starts next Tuesday, June 12th, from 7 to 9 p.m. with the Journey tribute band Escape, very popular act last year. There will be food trucks and refreshments available. Bring a blanket and lawn chair. And on Friday, June 8th at 11:30 a.m., the Menor Senior Center will host a family lunch with Jungle Terry, and all ages are welcome. And you could call 974-5725 at the Senior Center for reservations for that. And then my final note is to just inform council that an offer of employment was made last Friday and has been accepted for a new code enforcement supervisor. And upon background check, we expect that person to be fully up and active within about 2 weeks. That's all.
Great, great. Clerk's correspondence. Julie?
Council is in receipt of the Menor Municipal Court month-end report for April 2018. That's it.
Thank you. Commission committee reports. We have the meeting minutes for Municipal Planning Commission for May 3rd, 2018, and the Tree Commission for May 8th, 2018. Any old business? New business? Oh, Mr. Landig.
Thank you, Council President. This is old, but it's also new. It's well known that the Ohio Street area has had reliability of service problems from First Energy. Last Wednesday, there was an outage that Councilman Kirchner reported to me, and it seems like it took 4 hours, 3 to 4 hours, a contractor to clear the tree that had taken out the power lines was dispatched, but then First Energy did not show up. So sometimes they're their own worst enemy on their reputation for lack of reliability of service in this area. And I wrote, one of the government reps requested a explanation. First Energy, I've gotten nothing in return. Councilman Kirchner, have you heard anything from First Energy? That seems to be a pattern as well. They're the government rep. So Ken, I don't know if there's anything you can do in following up with that.
I have made a verbal request to the same representative, and I have also not received a reply. So we'll follow up with it yet this week, and we'll forward that on to council, whatever that response is.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry?
New business?
New business.
Yes, Mr. President, I'd like to propose a few changes in our meetings for July 3rd, July 19th, and August 21st. I would move to make the meetings go from 7 p.m. to 6 p.m.
We don't have a meeting July 19th. We don't have a July 19th.
I'm sorry, what?
We don't have a July 19th.
You gave me the,
No, we don't have 19.
okay, so
Just
I would
July.
move July 3rd and August 21st.
Thank you. Any questions?
Second.
Thank you. Julie?
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling? Yes. Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
And, Mr. President, I'd also move to move the November 5th meeting on Tuesday to Monday, November 6th meeting to November 5th.
Any
Second.
questions? Thank you. Julie?
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes. Persons before council, we have none. We have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Can I have a motion to?
Mr. President, I move, do we go back into session?
Second.
Julie, the roll?
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. President, I'd like to move to change the June 19th, 7 p.m. starting time to 6 p.m.
Second.
Second.
Julie, call the roll?
Mr. Landig?
Yes.
Mr. Marne?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Dowling?
Yes.
Mr. Kirchner?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. President, I would move to adjourn.
Second.
Dreams of the freeze to use Julie's